Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I have the honor of introducing our speaker tonight. Sussanne Skidmore, is a fighter for workers and a champion of solidarity. As president of the BC Federation of Labor, she stands shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of thousands of union members across this province, uniting workers across sectors, communities, and those that are struggling, because solidarity is how we build power. The BC Fed is the largest labor body in the British Columbia, representing hundreds of thousands of unionized workers. She was first elected to the Federation as an executive, as the Secretary Treasurer in 2018, was re-elected in 2020, and then acclaimed as BC Fed President in 2022. She's widely recognized for her human rights, social justice, and LGBTQI rights activism. And she has co-chaired the BC Fed's Human Rights Committee and has been active on the women and rights community, or committee, I should say. Most recently, she was awarded the King Charles III Coronation Medal, fancy, for her contributions to community and labor. But her most cherished credential is her social services diploma from UFE. Woo! Sussanne comes out of BCGU with years of experience on picket lines, at bargaining tables, and organizing with workers to defend our rights and our public services. She knows that when one group of workers is under attack, all workers are under attack, and she shows up accordingly. And today she's showing up for us. She is a bold voice for collective action, equity, and justice, and a leader who believes that our strength comes from standing together and refusing to be divided. As post-secondary faces the largest budgetary crisis in a generation, UFE navigating a $20 million deficit, with our members soon to face layoff notices, I am so thankful that we have her here today to share her knowledge, experience, and passion to encourage and motivate and strengthen solidarity within the Faculty of Staff and Association of UFE. As we all know here, we are the FSA, 1,300 members, and we are stronger together. So please join me in welcoming a true ally in the labor movement, a proud UFE alumna, BC Federation of Labor President, Sussanne Skidmore. Thank you.
Wow, that was a bio. I'm gonna have to get a copy of that. Whoever wrote that did a really good job. I was like, "Whoo!" I'm blushing. Uh, thank you, thank you so much for having me here. It really is an honor. And I was telling a few of you before I showed up a half an hour early just so I could actually like find the parking lot and figure out where I'm going and all of that, as I always do. I like being early for stuff, but I wanted to walk the halls again because in the early 90s, I went to school here, and my son went to the childcare facility that used to be over there when he was just 4 months. And because of an institution like this one, I was actually able to go to post-secondary education, and I was actually able to participate in a system I didn't know would have been accessible to me. So I just got to come and kind of wander the halls and find where my social class was, and and think about the people that I went to school here with and where they're at and what they're doing in their lives. And that was, I had some feels about it, I'll say. So it is really an honor to be here, of course, on the unceded traditional territory of the Seamuth and the Matsqui First Nations. And it really is an honor to be able to talk to you. I know it's been a bit of a heavy day with some tough meetings, and I'm sure many more to come. And like your president said, I have been asked to come and talk to you about how important it is that solidarity exists in times like this, especially if not the most important, that we have solidarity not just amongst yourselves as one union, but that expands beyond just the halls of the buildings that you work in, whether they're here or out at the satellite in Hope, but that they are all throughout your town. And I'm sorry to say, I know deeply, because all of your folks, we've got Sean here who sits at our executive council, and the post-secondary educators through FIPSI, have been talking a lot with us. We've spent a lot of time talking about how tough things are right now all across the province, well, all across the country, in post-secondary. And I'm very alive to the impact that that's going to have on many of you, but not just you, your communities and the people who live here. as well. I know that you're already coping and dealing with things like rising workloads and job precarity. That existed before the immigration changes and the international student hits started to come. I know that was very real for you. And for years now, many post-secondary employers have tried to make jobs in the sector look a little bit more like driving for Uber than for the teaching and supporting the next generation of British Columbians. And so, we know that you're seeing courses being canceled by the score, and not just courses, but entire programs eliminated, hundreds and hundreds of layoffs. The Coast Mountain College is closing a whole entire campus. And so we're seeing things like that. And it is very challenging, right? It's weighing heavy on my heart. And so I know it's a cold comfort to know that this is happening across the country, as I said, and that BC has at least been spared the ideological warfare that's going on next door in Alberta around how important education is. But because you're in a crisis, your students are also in a crisis, and the post-secondary education system in a whole is in a crisis. Carney's speech, the big speech we all heard at Davos. Look, I'll be honest, I listened to it twice, back to back, because I wanted to hear it all. And for a moment, I felt pride. I felt pride in my country because of everything else that's going on globally, as we all should have. But he did cite our educated workforce as one of the things that was Canada's key strategic strength. At the same time, as we know, there are drastic cuts happening in the immigration system, cuts, and how that's actually impacting the education system. And so unless the government actually steps up and steps in, like, how long does that last for? And so, even with here in British Columbia, with a progressive government in Victoria, we know that we still need to stand together and push harder than we've ever needed to before. And yeah, probably harder than most people thought we would. It is often hard to negotiate with who we call our friends. And so it's been a lot of fighting. But we have seen the overwhelming response from folks like you and your members here, but all across the province, about how urgent this is and how important it is, not just for post-secondary education, but for all of us to take up that challenge. And this is literally an era of sort of everything, everywhere, all at once. That sense that overwhelming is sometimes we all feel kind of defines this moment. It's a bit of a polycrisis, obviously. And instead of one big challenge where we can focus all of our attention, we are facing multiple huge crises at the same time. Challenges to our democracy, extremism and hate, Trump, period. The climate change crisis and the climate disasters that we all have been living through year after year, economic instability, Trump again, a drug poisoning pandemic that continues to worsen, labor market disruptions, wars, polarization, more Trump, AI, the rapidly changing workplaces and the nature of work, and of course, the growing gulf between the rich and the poor, and still more Trump. And his threats and the chaos. And I don't mean, sometimes we have to laugh, because if we don't laugh, we cry. And I've been doing my fair share of that these days. But, his threats and the chaos and fear and suffering that come along with a president like Donald Trump, we can't ignore that. They are truly our closest neighbor and largest trading partner, and they are descending into outright fascism at breakneck speed. And every day brings a new atrocity onto the front page or onto the front screen of your cell phone. Each of these crises reinforces the next one. They are entangled with one another. And it's so easy to become exhausted. I know I feel that myself some days. I know I see it around the tables that I sit in and the rooms I sit in and my girlfriends chat. You see it, you feel it. And it's hard and it's weighing on people indeed. But we need to come together and we need to stand up and act on these things. So just a quick show of hands. How many of you have felt like that in the last 3 months, or maybe just today? I know it's been a tough day here. Me too. I have carpal tunnel from doom scrolling, I am sleepless often. Many nights I wake up thinking about the world, and I'm having the weirdest dinner conversations with friends near and far, chatting with friends from Prince George, where I spent 20 years after leaving here. I moved to Prince George, and we're talking about things we never thought we'd talk about. Becoming a registered gun owner in British Columbia. Like, it's not something I thought I would ever need to do or even think about. Last month, I was thinking about scuba diving. This month, I'm thinking about, do I fight for my country and what does that look like? And, or do I go and hide? Should we reach, like, those are the weirdest things I never thought I would be thinking about, but that's what's keeping me up at night. And every time I'm tempted to kind of give into that exhaustion, something happens to remind me that the world actually needs us. And those of you who know me, you know I'm pretty tireless. And so if you know I'm feeling exhausted, I know you are too. So for me, I know that we need to do self-care and we need to take care of ourselves. But at this point in time, we don't have the luxury of leaning into our exhaustion. The people that we represent, our members, they're going through tough times too, many of you. And the cost of paying just for the essentials continues to rise. Cost of living, cost of groceries, cost of gas, right? The list is long. Finding a home you can afford is a full-time job in itself. In the early 90s, fascinating now to think about it. I tried to buy a house. I think it was $127,000 for a 1,800 square foot house. And I couldn't actually get it because I couldn't technically afford it, said the bank. But right, that's mind boggling to think of. It wasn't that long ago. My son's 30, 31 years old. And now that house I know would be probably over $1 million, right? Not affordable, not accessible. Families are relying on the services that you provide here. Families are often challenged to even access those services, which is why they're so important, why they're so much more important than we can even sort of put words to. And I know that people are finding it hard to get their footing, let alone just get ahead, right? Put a little bit aside for a holiday, a vacation, for post-secondary education for your children or maybe yourself. And so it is tough. I know you're seeing that with your students who are coping with all of it as well. I saw young folks, studying Paul, I think, thinking about how the world is now to compared to when I went here. Plus, trying to get an education system that continues to show the strains that it has been under for a long time. And there are some very wealthy, powerful corporate forces out there that actually want to make it worse. And I wish that wasn't true. They want to make jobs worse. They want to make housing more expensive, and they want to just redistribute even well to our pockets and put it into their own. And they want us all to be so scared of losing the very basic things that we have that I'm afraid we'll let them do that, right? These corporate forces are counting on our exhaustion. They are, leaning into that, and the world needs people like us, people who show up at the end of the day, on a cloudy Thursday afternoon to listen to, hang out with their coworkers and their comrades in their union, but also to hang out with the president of the BC Federation of Labor, right? That's what the world needs more of. People like us. It needs us at our best. It need us for the long haul. Good news is there are things that have a solid track record of working for us when it comes to making political changes. We've been at our most effective when we had the three of these things. First, when we're united, we are a united labor movement. The core value of the labor movement is solidarity. When we have many ways of expressing it, whether it's showing up on a picket line, wearing a button, signing a petition, sending a letter to your MLA or the minister, and one of our other core values around solidarity is our saying. It is what we desire for ourselves, we wish for others. We have an injury to one is an injury to all. I just heard of one of your coworkers, had an injury today. And when that happens, it impacts all of us, right? And health and safety is so critical and important in our day to day. And of course, the other one that is something that is really near and dear to me as a human rights activist for over 2 decades is that no one is free until we are all free. And that doesn't mean we don't disagree on things in the labor movement, because I assure you we do. Sean can tell you that. The media caricature of organized labor as this big monolithic block is, sometimes true, but we are a very And we don't always see eye to eye on absolutely everything. But as the past president of the Federation of Labor, Laird Cronk, used to always say, is we draw a big circle around the things that we do agree on and we move those things forward. We wrap our arms around them and move. We're a movement. We have to move. We cannot sit idle and we cannot sit still or we are losing, right? And it's not always easy. There is so much going on that needs to be changed. There is there's geopolitical everything. There's a constant temptation to spread yourself thin, trying to take on everything. And it's hard to take some issues off the table, especially when you know they're important. But the key is to remind yourselves that you aren't saying no, you're saying not right now, potentially for some things. It takes discipline and it takes clarity, knowing exactly what you want to accomplish. And I'm loving the way this is going because I feel like this is one of those things folks can lean into and be like, I need to think about this as my priority, your campaign. But the reward is when you do those things, you actually will get results. You will get people who will stand together with you and speak with you in a united voice on the issue that matters most. And that's how we win. That's how working people win, especially when we have a government that does try to listen, that opens the doors to us. I was doing labor activism in the early 2000s when the doors were locked and we were not invited into the table. That isn't the case. We don't always agree with them. In fact, we have to rattle the cages sometimes a little bit with them. But we do know that having a progressive government is in power is better than the alternative. And I am not going to apologize for the current state of public sector bargaining because I'm as frustrated as everyone about it. I can understand the virtues of a progressive government might feel a little theoretical right now, given the straits that you all are in today. But it really has made a difference. And, we made a lot of change under Premier John Horgan, and we are making a lot of change with Premier EB as well. Like I said, we don't get everything we want, far from it. If we lived in the utopia that I would like to live in, I wouldn't have to do this job. But that is the whole point of having the labor movement that is united and solid. We heard over the last few days, Sean and Brent, your FPSC president, were all in meetings together, and the Premier came in, and it was not an easy meeting, I can assure you. But he heard us loud and clear, right? And it is a room that in my past, Christy Clark never would have walked into, and nor would Gordon Campbell. And so, the fact that the Premier will come and listen, and probably feel a little bit beat up after he heard that is a sign of that at least they're willing to try and figure out how we can move forward together. But the fact remains that even as when it's hard and even when we don't win everything we want, we have won a lot that are impacting British Columbians. And it is important to celebrate our wins. And sometimes I feel a little bit like a broken record when I say these things. I'll apologize to Sean and a few of you who've heard me say them over and over. But we have won some things. We have paid sick leave in this province. We were the first. There's more work to do, and we're fighting for more. And we're also fighting for all workers to be included in that. We won what is single step certification. It's card check. It's the access for folks who aren't in a union yet to be able to join a union safely and easier than it used to be, in a way that they are less intimidated by their bosses. We do have the highest minimum wage of any province. It is also indexed to inflation, so that the most vulnerable workers in our province are not losing ground. There's been a historic investment in expanding childcare and making it affordable. I'm sure I don't have to tell you how much of a difference $10 a day childcare has made to people in your communities, maybe yourselves. Seeing some head nods out there. And we are on the brink of the risk of losing that because we need to keep fighting for things. We had skilled trade certification. My son is a heavy duty mechanic. That one's near and dear to me. And lots of improvements in the workers' compensation system here in BC, and a lot of fixing all of the undoing that the past governments had. We also have anti-racism legislation. We have gender-based violence action plan in this province. We have pay transparency, which is the foundation for pay equity, which is what I actually want to see. We have the return of the Human Rights Commission, an action to combat hate, historic action on reconciliation, including the DRIPA legislation. And so we have made real gains. And so it is important though that that I leave that with you is that those things didn't just happen because we elected a progressive government. Those things happened because the labor movement came and showed up and continued to push for things when we got a progressive government. Those things were important to the union movement, and we fought for them because we don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for all workers. That's part of what the Federation does. Some of those things have made a huge difference in people's lives. And that happens because of our unity and our solidarity, and because we do have a government that will listen to us. I'll just keep talking loud. They'll get the hint. Sorry for you on the Zoomiverse. We have some chitty chatty students, which is actually a good thing. Today, though, our government is facing some huge headwinds, right? The tariffs. I mean, gosh, did you ever think you'd talk so much about tariffs in your whole life? I mean, we've gone through softwood lumber issues. We are seeing mills close down all around this province at record speed, post-COVID deficit, and of course, a federal government who says some really good words, but they are literally laying off thousands of workers right now. Like just this month alone, I think it's 9,000 members were laid off. The plan is to lay off 30 to 60,000 members. Those are folks who are delivering the services you all rely on, right? Those are the people that make sure your tax returns get done. They're the people that help make sure your parents get their pension checks and veterans get the services they need. They're literally losing those jobs. So it is indeed a tough time to govern. And I have some sympathy for that, not a lot, but but I think what I want you to know is what I'm telling our government every chance I get, and what I said literally on Monday night, face to face with Premier Eby, is that, I know that it's tough. I know that times are tough and it's hard to govern. And it's even tougher right now for working people to try and make ends meet and, God forbid, actually get ahead, as I said. So we actually need our government in Victoria right now to push to continue to do the right thing. And right now, that push seems even harder. But the three key things for us is we've stuck together. We've stuck to our priorities, and we've worked to elect progressive politicians in a government, and we need to continue to keep pressuring them to do the right thing now more than ever. So in short, solidarity, focus, and continued political action. And by the way, of political action doesn't have to mean you align yourself with any particular party. The BC Fed is partners with the BC NDP. I know you know that. I'm proud of that. Even when times are tough, I'm still proud of that, even though I'm frustrated. But I also know that not every union, mine included, the BCGEU, is not a partisan union. So I get that, and I appreciate that. It's actually why the BC Fed gets to be partisan, because you all get to tell us what's important to you, and then we get to go and bang on the legislature doors in a bit more of a partisan way. Now, I know, especially today, I felt it sort of coming in and chatting with all of you how dire things feel. But when I talked about the exhaustion that we're talking about, I wasn't necessarily just speaking figuratively, because we do know that burnout's real, right? You know that in your jobs, you know it in your communities. We need to make sure that we're standing together, because there are more of us, right? Many hands light work is the short way of saying that. So I think the first thing I want to say around sort of what solidarity work looks like, whatever form it takes, is this. The first is make your goals achievable, right? Figure out some things, because you got to win. You have to celebrate some wins. And they also have to be things worth fighting for, right? I mean, obviously here you've started your campaign today, and you need to be able to inspire, right? You need to inspire your members to not go into the dark hole of doom, to inspire them to stand up and fight for themselves and each other. You need to sustain your motivation in whatever creative way you can. That's incredibly important, because the theory of change means we hold ourselves accountable. We can honestly answer the question, did the campaign work, right? Are these tactics effective, or do we need to try something else, right? Not being afraid to pivot when something's not working, instead of just kind of digging in or saying, we've always done it this way. And when you can point to an outcome, tell the story of how your effort, then you'll have a lot more motivation next. You will have more members show up. You will have people see the wins, and again, celebrate. Find some joy. If you're not finding joy, there's no point. I can't stress this enough. Celebrate every single victory because we've had a lot of tears over the last decade. The last 5 minutes, really. But like, it feels a lot like that. But there are, that when you win, you need to yell it from the rooftops, the small wins, the minor wins, the big wins, put out news releases, yell it from your rooftop, send out email blasts, and make sure that you are, sharing that joy in any way you can. And even if you're meeting partial successes, embrace those too and celebrate them as well. Because we must always be clear about how much more we have to do, but we need to make sure that we celebrate how far we came because we cannot forget that. It's a big win. Have a party, an actual literal party. Eat some cookies, have some cake, and give folks a chance to bask in the satisfaction of making change in the world. Give folks an outlet, of course, so that we're not just constantly in catharsis, right? What's more, give them a chance to see themselves as part of the solution, part of something bigger than just themselves or their department or the one, the class they're teaching. Celebrations tell other people that change is possible. And they're one of the ways casual supporters start becoming activists. I know some of you are activists in this room. I know that's how you got pulled in many years ago. And don't wait for a victory to have a party, right? Sometimes you just got to kick your heels up and have some fun because you got to let loose or just, whatever that looks like for you, right? Group hang, not every activist event has to be a serious, formally planned event, but it is important to come together in community and celebrate each other. One of the best things that can happen for a movement is for it to take on social dimension, that it's not all right. And the fourth thing that to remember is that you need to acknowledge when things fall short and learn from it. The biggest moments in my life that when I learned the absolute most is when we lost something. When we did not get the win we wanted to do, I absolutely learned the most, whether it was me running for office and my team, or when we, ran for office and thought we were going to win and didn't, right? You have to have self-reflection in those moments and learn from them. It's actually how we succeed in the end. Because if you're not prepared to do that, we will not win. We can't get better if we don't learn from our mistakes. And when our efforts don't get the results we want, we can at least salvage some valuable insights into what did work and what we need to change. And disappointment's rough. I have had some sad moments where we did not get what we want, and we all went into the back office and had our cries. And then we dusted ourselves off and got right back to work. Right? Because there are some, short-term comfort in pointing fingers and blaming people, but it's not really productive. It doesn't actually create solidarity in the movement. And channeling that energy instead of, leaning into moving forward and looking towards the future, it's better emotionally, obviously, for all of us. It's better in building our effectiveness. Look, I want to win absolutely every campaign I fight. I know some of you know that about me, but falling short is also a great teacher. It's not my favorite teacher. I have my favorite teachers. That is not it, but it is a very good one. The fifth thing to bear in mind, maybe the most important, connection is so important. Connect, connect, connect. Design your campaigns and your actions so that they connect people with each other, and make sure you're building connections for yourself as well. I believe that's everything, because power can come from many different places. When you're sitting across a negotiating table from the management, you can pretty quickly see power comes from having money. It can come from writing laws in your favor. It can come from having an army of lobbyists and lawyers and media pundits ready to go at moment's notice. But power can also come from other sources. It can come from each other, from one another, from leaning into our relationships of trust and support. And it isn't just about our shared interests. It's not just transactional. That's very important. What binds us isn't just our shared interests. It's caring for each other. It's saying to each other, your struggle is my struggle. My victories are your victories. Solidarity ultimately comes down to is deep connection and relationship with one another. I can't stress it enough. Our relationships with one another is actually what is going to get us through the tough times. They make us more effective as a movement, and they make us more resilient, partly because we're sharing the work, but also because we see we're far from being alone in this, because sometimes it can feel very isolating. And in my time working in the labor movement and the human and on human rights, I've also seen a kind of solidarity that's every bit as important, which is personal solidarity, lifting each other up, one on one, building relationships and friendships that can keep you going in tough time. Gives you a real reality check when you're going off the rails. Having those people in your life are like, that's not this should go, and they dust you off when you fall down, because we need those people in our lives. Those relationships can replenish us when we need it the absolute most, and you need to draw on them. I call mine my girl gang, what your sister solidarity circle, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but you need to lean into those people, because one of the keys to giving solidarity to ourselves from time to time is, of course, accepting it from others. It's easy to fall into despair right now. I know that. But one of the truly beautiful things about working together for justice is seeing every day the power of solidarity and connection and what we can do together when we are actually connected to one another, when we trust each other, when we count on each other, and when we see people standing up for one another. Building connection builds that trust and faith, and that's really what builds hope, right? Gets us out of bed in the morning on those tough days when it's cold and wet, and you may have been doom scrolling on social media when you wake up. Don't do that. Keep asking yourself, where are you finding hope right now? Where are you finding connection? What replenishes you for the fight? And one last thing I will say, these days, advocacy isn't an easy thing to do. Putting your hand up and saying, sure, I'll be a shop steward. I'll serve on a committee. I'll be a delegate. I'll walk a picket line. That takes more courage than it used to. I don't think that's an accident. I think there are some very powerful and dangerous forces working to undermine grassroots power and civil society. And putting your hand up today, especially taking on public leadership, can mean opening yourself to some ugly attacks and extreme cases. It can mean genuine risk. You know that in these communities very well. But it can also mean an incredible sense of satisfaction and achievement. Leading change can show you a more meaningful path in life that you might not have ever imagined for yourself. And by putting your hand up to be a delegate or an executive member or a committee chair, or maybe you have a phone tree. I keep talking about phone trees this week. I was reminiscing again this week. Gosh, I'm getting old, I guess. Truly makes it easier for the next hand to go up, right? If someone sees someone else stepping up, you're not going to do it alone. There is a lot to do. We need all the hands to go up. And on that note, I'm looking forward to hearing from you and seeing your hands go up. So open to any questions. I am an open book, as Sean knows. I also have no poker face. So if I look sad, I'm sad. But if I don't know, I won't lie to you. So you're not going to get any BS from me. And I will try and answer all your questions as honestly as I can. But don't be shy. Thank you. It's always hard for that first hand to go up. There's an awkward silence. Somebody must have a question. Yeah. Can you tell me who you are and what you do? I know it's like, oh, do I have to? But yes, please. It's really important to me. It's part of building relationships, honestly.
Well, Colleen, I'm a librarian here.
Yeah.
I have been the bargainer for the union in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
So you're with BCGEU, and BCGEU has kind of undergone lots of labor action to get a deal.
Yeah.
And I actually have hung out with BCGEU folks on the picket line, particularly in this last strike. And I'm just curious about what specific strategies have worked in bringing BC. I mean, it's such a diverse union, right? In bringing the BCGU members together. We have a much smaller but quite diverse union.
Yeah.
So
So BCGU has about 100,000 members right now. I mean, they're almost like their own federation. They literally have members and in every part of the province and in every job. They have private sector, they have public sector, they have, sort of the quasi public sector through community social services and healthcare and all of that. And The union was built on solidarity. It started out as a government-only union, just back in 1974, I think, or 76. Went from being a professional association to actually being a union. And one of the goals of the union shortly after that was actually to grow and to embrace the differences, right? And that is what I think has worked really well for the BCGU, and which is why you all showed up for them on the picket line, why you honked for them, maybe dropped off some donuts or coffee, because you could see yourselves in them. I mean, they obviously have folks in the post-secondary institutions and libraries, but they also have municipal workers, and they have folks who are plowing the highways, and they have people who are out there doing forest firefighting, right? And but what our difference is, we have more in common than we have different. And so it doesn't really matter how big the union is if the fundamental principle of, what we wish for ourselves, we desire for others, the union is built on that. Every union should be built on that. And it works, and it's not perfect. But because the fundamental idea of being an organizing union and being welcome to folks and organizing places that may never have seen themselves organized, like hotel workers and things like that. And they represent their members well, and it works. And so the struggle on the picket line was the first time our union's been on strike in, well, my lifetime and in any recent history, especially. I think it is in memory, not my memory, but in the intellectual memory of the labor movement, the longest public sector strike in BC in our history. And it was and will continue to have been successful, not because just BCGEU and PEA folks were out on that picket line. It was successful because we all showed up on that picket line. And what will be important as we move through all of the other public sector bargaining that's still happening, yours, K-12, paramedics, teachers, health sciences associations, the folks that are taking your blood at the hospital or helping your kids do some language work and things like that. Technicians in the hospitals, all that. What will help them succeed in public sector bargaining is that same level of solidarity that showed up for the BCGU, because it's not just about one union. It can't be. We will never succeed that way. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
Hello,
Hi.
my name's Daniel. I'm a student here at UFE.
Awesome.
I just had a question on what is like the standpoint or the view of AI coming in, and as more students are switching over to online courses as
Yeah.
opposed to in person, is there a certain strategy that the union has in terms of not as many teachers being needed because students would switch over to online?
We are having the most fascinating conversations about AI right now. And literally every union in BC is grappling with this, right? How it impacts your work, how it can be used for good and not evil, right? And how, because the reality is if people aren't working, so, I'll use your example. If we use AI, which is not a good idea to teach courses, we need people to teach courses, because aside from just teaching, you're building relationships and you're growing your community and all of the important things. I think some of the most important things I learned from many of my facilitators, I didn't learn in the classroom. I often learned in their office and in after chats, digging through a paper or getting, constructive criticism and things like that. AI can't do that. It's not real, and we don't feed the AI machine. The right wing is currently. And so if you're using Chat GPT or anything like that, it is full of flaws. You know that because you're getting papers written by the AI machine. But what we're really looking at right now, we actually created an AI working group committee. We have an AI committee right now. And we're trying to actually identify some top priorities of things we can actually dig into, because we are way behind on getting ahead of creating some sort of legislation around protecting British Columbians from AI, right? Whether it's our sovereignty, whether it is our personal being, right? You think about folks in the film industry or the music industry, they're literally, their likeness is being copied and used, their voices, their faces, their bodies, all of those things. And we need to be able to protect basic education, right? There is a reason we need people to learn. We do not have to look far to see what intentional degradation of the education system has done to democracy in a country. That is as diplomatic as I will say that. It was intentional, right? It was intentional. Starve people of good public quality education, and you will lose democracy in your country. And we are at risk, and AI causes a real threat to that. Yeah. It's a great question. Thank you.
We do have a question online, which I think we can play through the speakers.
Cool. Awesome.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank you so much for coming. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. My name's Tony Latour. I teach in the visual arts department, and I'm the non-regular union executive rep. I've got a question that's particular to our sector, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer it, but do you know why the BC government isn't lobbying the federal government to put international student visas through and to fund international students so we can regain our reputation as a world-class country to study in?
I can't really answer that question, but I don't know that they're not, I guess is my answer. I don't know that they're actively not doing that. I know they're lobbying the government around a bunch of things, and some of them are around, I know there have been conversations around international students. I know the Canadian Labour Congress is also having conversations at a national level around, not just international students, but also the immigration policies, which is having a huge impact on a ton of sectors as well. And so I don't actually know that the government's not doing that. I will promise that I will go and do a little bit of research and find out if they are, and I'll let your folks know, because I actually suspect that they are. They are cap in hand to the federal government just about every day right now, because there is some money. It is focused on some unusual things we probably never would have anticipated either, but military funding is one of them. Shipbuilding in this province is another one. But you can't have those industries unless you have people who are educated to work in those industries. So I can only assume there are some conversations happening. They may not be that, and I don't mean this in a dismissive way, granular, but I can find out, and I will. Yeah, thanks. Anyone else? I know, nobody likes talking into a mic except for a politician. All right, thank you.
Okay. So my question is, if as an individual,
Yeah.
if I was interested in becoming more involved in BC Fed, what
Yeah.
type of opportunities are available for me?
Like the BC Fed is, kind of like FIPSI, right? For you, it's your federation for your sector specifically. The BC Fed is like, sorry, don't want to spill my tea. We're like the umbrella organization for all of the unions in most of the unions in the province. And so we do educational things. There's possible committees. That stuff obviously goes through your federation. But I actually think the most important work that union members can get involved in is actually with your labor councils. It's how I got started in the labor movement. I mean, I got involved. I was telling the story in 2 minutes or less about how I became the president of the Federation of Labor. The short story is somebody asked me if I was interested in union things. And my first job in my union was I got the mail from the union office that said, hey, there's a meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. My job was to put it on the board, wander around the office and just say, because I'm a social butterfly. It was literally to go and tell everyone, hey, everyone, I put a bulletin on the board. There's a meeting on Tuesday. Hopefully you can come. And I did that every time it happened. And then all of a sudden I'm the president of the Federation of Labor. There was a roller coaster along the way. But truly, I think I learned and felt the most growth in my activism with the Labor Council. It's where you're actually in a room with other people in your community from all of the different unions, and you're working on things like school board elections and municipal elections and and also Labor Day and having fun and celebration. May Day, maybe, I don't know. Like every labor council is a little different. But you, as I understand it, are affiliated to the Labor Council. I think some of you participate in it. Yes, I'm getting head nods. And I suspect there's probably room to grow there of people who may be interested in doing that. That would be a really good start for someone. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Thank you for your talk. I was
Yeah.
wondering what communication strategies you use or plan to use to combat fatigue, like survey fatigue and attendance fatigue. And as you see, everyone's just tired, and you've
Yeah.
noted that. So
Yeah.
what do you plan?
I mean, look, for me, I am like full disclosure, I am the worst person to use as an example. I have no boundaries, but I'm also an extreme extrovert, right? So I am an extreme extrovert and I thrive off of this. I'm happy to sit and have coffee with all of you for an excessive amount of time. Conventions with thousands of people bring me joy and pump up my tires. It doesn't work for everyone. I totally get that. Walking a picket line also, and just talking to workers, right? What I do when I'm on a picket line, I just go and pick one person, never seen them before, and I ask them about their job and I listen to them. Like that's the kind of stuff that feeds my soul. Like for everyone, it's just a little bit different, right? Some people crochet, some people do Sudoku. I like you just need to figure out what works for you. But for me, we have leaned too far, I think, just in general as society, into the ease of the Zoomiverse, as I like to call it, because I'm an old lady now and I get to say weird things like the interwebs and Zoomiverse. But it's important because like all of you online are participating and you would not have been able to be here. So that's great. But we also need to build community in I always joke when I see people I have only seen on Zoom or Facebook, for years, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have legs. Do you know what I mean? Because all I ever see of some people is literally their shoulders and their head. And you cannot build a relationship with someone and feel their joy in the same way. Although it is great and creates access for folks who have either like geographical inabilities to come, but also have accessibility issues of participation and a number of things. But interaction in a three-dimensional way is actually really important for me. And so for you need to figure out what that is, right? And it will be very different. My partner is the extreme opposite. She is an extreme introvert. And she's like, cool, I'm going home. Don't talk to me for 10 hours. She's been teaching all week. She will literally go and not talk to anybody for at least 10 hours on Friday when she leaves there. So yeah, we all have our own ways, but you got to find them. The secret is just figuring it out for yourself, and trying stuff that you wouldn't have tried before, right? Go play soccer, play pickleball. That's one of my favorite things to do. But you gotta be able to have a release valve also for the stress, for the grief, for all the things that you're feeling right now. There's a lot of grief going on, and you need to be able to park it. I meditate a lot, something I never thought I would do. I do a ton of yoga also. There's just you need to figure out what you can decompress a little bit so that you can be re-energized to be able to show up in whatever way you can. Yeah, it's a great question.
Okay, I'll ask a question then. What advice would you give to us to give our members to take action? What kind of action can they take?
I mean, you folks have already started down a great path. A campaign needs a bunch of different ways that people can show up, right? Not everybody's going to be able to, take a protest sign. Not everyone's going to want to pick up the phone and talk to their MLA or whatever like that. But everyone can do this, right? Every single one of you can put this button on and show solidarity, right? You walk around the school, if you're wearing this button, you nod, even if you don't know your coworkers, you will see them, you will know they are with you, right? That's great. But the next thing you have to do is you need to build community support. Right? This can't just be you fighting this fight. You need to, tap into the soccer moms and the parents at the gymnastics club and, the coaches of the hockey team. I mean, you've got you got a hockey team. I'm not probably pointing in the right direction. There's a hockey team that plays over here somewhere. I had to think about where I was. Lead into those folks. Go leaflet. Go talk about how important this facility is to that facility, right? That hockey team wouldn't exist if this facility here didn't exist. It just wouldn't, because this community would not be the size it is if there wasn't a public sector post-secondary education institution in it. And so that, like, the growing your campaign, so it's not just you talking about it, that you have public support to apply public pressure, and that's how you win. And it might not be quick and it might take a long time, but that's the secret. If you don't have the community on board, which is the GEU did, right? The GEU on the picket line, the public was 100% behind that. The airline attendants, right? Like, that one was bananas. Those folks are working for free, often for hours, like, you probably all been in an airplane. They don't get paid till that door shuts. Nobody knew that until they went on strike, right? I mean, I knew that because I'm me and I'm a union nerd, but like, most public didn't know that. But when the public found that out, I mean, they campaigned for 2 years to make the public learn that. 2 years. And then before they were actually able to pull the trigger on the strike. But when people started thinking about that, when you get on an airplane, they're helping you put your suitcase up. They're getting you into your seat. They're making sure you have all the safety measures and all of those things. You're not getting paid for that. It's outrageous. You understand that because you do that yourselves, right? To some extent, some of you. Whether it's, the sort of extracurricular things you take on for the institution, or you only get paid so many hours in the day and there's so much work to get done. Most of you are still doing it, right? And so some of it is just building support amongst allies. Yeah. Anything else? Anything from the interwebs?
Okay, I'll ask another one. You
All
talked
right.
about getting the community on side. What about our students?
Well, that's community. That is part of your community, right? I think I saw an election sign outside for a student association. So elections are up. I mean, make this an election issue with the students. Get them on side. I mean, gosh, students are some of the most energetic people in this province. I'm speaking at a rally on Saturday morning with the Federation of Students who are coming together with some of the other student organizations, and of course, lots of unions to push back on what we're seeing, on, like, and fight for them also. That's like, they have to see you fighting for them. We're very worried about the tuition freeze getting lifted. That's going to change people's lives in this province in what I would call a fundamental value of being a social democrat. We cannot let that happen. And that means you have to fight for them too, right? And they will fight for you if you fight for them, and you'll do it together. And, hopefully we'll be able to win some of those things. Yeah. Okay. Are we good? All right. Do you want to wrap us up? All right.
I want to just say a huge thank you for spending time with us today. Yeah. And yeah, thanks to the folks that are online and the members that were able to attend in person. I know I took a lot away from that, and I'm glad it's recorded because I didn't bring my notepad. So yeah, so very much a heartfelt appreciation. I know there's a lot of tough things happening across our sector and across just BC in general, but it's very much appreciated. So thank you so much, Sussanne. We have a small gift. I think it's here. Or you get a sticker. I don't know. So yeah, just on behalf of the Faculty and Staff Association, our executive, and all our members, thank you so much again for being here tonight and the tireless work you do on behalf of all members. There is some union swag in there. Yeah.
Just so the folks online can
There,
see.
get a photo quick of that. All right. Oh yeah. And we'll take a group shot if Sussanne would do that. And thanks to everyone online. And this concludes our event today. So thanks everybody.